Hey, Kevin here, and I just thought I'd talk a little bit about what's been going on with the project and show you what we're up to. And you can see we've gotten quite a bit of progress on the siding. And just to recap, we're doing cedar shake siding, which is probably one of the more expensive things you can do. But the cool thing is, since we're dealing with a really small house, it's a nice upgrade that really doesn't cost an arm and a leg on this scale of a project. So it's, you know, when you make it smaller, you can have upgrades that you can kind of spend back in and wind up with a nicer finish and more value for a lot less, because you're not spending, you know, tons of money on a great big house, right? So little advantage there. So you can kind of see we got two of these walls. We're about, say, 75% done with the shingling on the walls right now. And it's been a process, because it's a slow process. We're using you know, these small shingles, and they come in a bunch of random sizes. This one all the way up to, you know, something this big, and actually we've even got some that are even bigger than that, and just kind of some different sizes in between. And basically it's a lot like when you're shingling a roof, you gotta, or laying bricks, you always want to stagger your seams on your shingles so that you're not lining up straight above the next course coming up, so that you got a good weather tight seal on the house. And really looks sharp, I think. Tell me what you think. I think it's very distinctive. It's very unique. It's not something you see every day anymore with house building, to have a cedar shake siding on the house. So we kind of wanted to do something you know, really eye-catching, I guess, and it's unique for sure. And it really smells good. It's kind of like having a cedar closet for a house, which is kind of cool. So you sit around outside and you can just smell this cedar aroma coming off the house all over the place, which is kind of neat. So we shouldn't have any worry about moths or anything, you know. That should repel those. But anyway, it's a process. We staple these on one at a time. And, you know, I started out down here on my hands and knees crawling around trying to get the first few courses on. And then I got to where I was squatting down to put these ones on. Then I finally got to where I could stand up. And now we're getting into the high wire act, where we got to get up on the ladders. And that's always interesting. And it's a lot slower because you got to keep moving the ladder around. But overall, we're really happy with it. I think it looks pretty smart. And just another option for somebody that wants to build their own home, and you gotta get your own personality in it. You know, you can just do what you want to do, and it doesn't cost an arm and a leg to do this kind of stuff, because it's a small house. So that's what makes it fun. So we're getting there. This is our weather wall, so we're really paying attention to you know, making sure we seal it up good as we go, because most of our weather coming right off the Pacific Ocean over here just comes in and hits this side of the house. A lot of rain, a lot of wind in the winter time, so we want to make sure we got ourselves a good tight seal, and so we're really working on that. And just thought I'd give you a little progress update. We'll see you on the next video. Hey, this is Kevin from selfreliantlife.com, and I want to talk about siding today. And the first thing I want to do is go over some of the tools we're going to need to get the job done, so that you make sure you got everything you need before you get started. So there's a couple of different particular types of tools you're going to want to get a hold of here for this project in order to make it easy. Now, what we're going to do is cedar siding, which is a little bit more complex than regular types of siding that you might be putting on, but I think the finish is exceptional. The type of siding that we're putting on, I would say, is arguably probably one of the most expensive, if not the most expensive types of siding we're going to be putting on cost-wise. But it's also a really nice upgrade to the house. It looks sharp. It's very unique. It is a little more tedious and time consuming to do, but I think the finished effect that you get is phenomenal, so I think it's well worth the extra effort. So I'm going to make this a lot easier for you, and to be perfectly honest, I've never done this before, so I'm an overnight expert, if you will, in the project or in the process, but I've done quite a bit of it so far, and it's come out really nice. So I want to show you what I have learned, sort of some tips and tricks and so forth, to make it easier to really come out with a nice finished product. So first thing you're going to need is a stapler. Now back in the old days, they hand nailed these things on, and that was a lot slower process. Today we've got the ability to put these on a lot faster with a staple gun. You don't want to use a nailer. And this particular gun, there's a certain size that I'm going to recommend to you, and that's a 7/16 or 11 millimeter crown. Now the crown is the width of the staple that you're talking about, and this will shoot a 2-inch staple, which is another thing you want to do. You want to get a 2-inch staple because that's going to drive through multiple layers of the siding, the shingles, and then well into the subdeck or the sheathing of the wall to give you a good anchor. And so that's really important. So the next thing is the type of staples that you want to use on a project like this, and that is these stainless steel 7/16 by 2-inch staples. So they need to be stainless steel, and I had a hard time finding these locally. I wound up buying them online. We got them on Amazon, as well as the gun. Now that's funny because the area that we live in is a beach community, bunch of beach communities around here, and a lot of houses have cedar siding on them in this area, and so you would think that the local hardwares or the big boxes would be carrying this kind of stuff, but they don't. So we bought them online, and actually comparing prices, that was where we got the best deal anyway, even when some of the companies that, you know, they could buy them for you and have them shipped in, they still were a little higher price. So this was the best value, and this has been a good gun. I've done about half the house with it as of this video, and I haven't had an ounce of trouble with it. So it's been really, it's a Hitachi for those that want to know. So it's been a great gun. So anyway, you're going to need a lot of these. This particular box I think has 2,000 in it, so we've gotten quite a few of those. It's going to take quite a few to get that all, you know, wrap your house. This particular house, waiting to see, but it's probably between 8 and 10 boxes, I believe, to get the entire project done. So if you're building this house, that's something that you ought to know. So anyway, enough of that. So you obviously are going to need an air compressor and an air compressor hose that will hook up to this gun, and so that's a given as well. And so you know, a nice little contractor's air compressor with it's got enough air compression to run one of these is what I recommend you get. Some hand tools that you're going to need. You're definitely going to need a hammer. You're definitely going to need a tape measure, a marking device. This is a contractor's pencil. You're going to need a nice sharp utility knife and plenty of blades, because you want to keep changing those out so you stay sharp, because we're doing a lot of trimming, fine detail work to get some of the shingles around some of the wall obstacles that we're going to be dealing with. You're going to need caulking and a caulking gun. Now what I am using is a clear silicone caulk. It's made for outside, and it's an all-purpose acrylic latex, and I believe it's paintable. Not that we're doing that, but you're going to need plenty of this, because you're going to need to caulk up against your seams, against windows, doors, corner trim, and so forth, and probably around some of the outlets and other things that you might have on the wall when you're going by. So that's pretty important. I recommend a level, and I have a 4-foot level here. It's really critical to get your rows of shingles straight and level. It's going to make a big difference when you get all said and done, to make sure that you start out nice and level and flat and square as you go up the project. So this is a good way to check that, to make sure you're staying there. And that's the majority. And so then I use a gapping tool. This is a very high-tech gapping tool called a paint stir, and it's about 1/8 of an inch thick. And so this has been my gapping tool, and you're going to see why I use that and how, but there needs to be a certain gap between the shingles, and this has been working out just fine, so easy to handle. A couple sawhorses, because I've got a little bit of a project table here. I also keep a little container, whether you're using a tool bag or a little box or whatever, to kind of keep all this stuff contained. I'll show you mine. It's a little kind of a tray. And another thing I like to use is this speed square. This helps me get some straight marks where I'm cutting and trimming some of the shingles to go around some of the, you know, windows and doors and so forth. So that's kind of handy to have some kind of a straight edge. And then this, I carry everything in this. We have sand for a yard, and I don't want to set my staple gun down in that sand and get it jammed up. So when I am not holding it, I set it inside of here to keep that from happening. And it makes a nice place to put all your small hand tools, so you've got them right with you and you're not wondering where you put them. So it's a great idea. So let's talk about the shingles next, because there's some things you need to know about those. Okay, so let's talk about the shingles themselves. And so I bought these from a local mill that makes these. Now I say local, they were within 2 hours of me because we don't have them right here, but and they delivered them as a part of the price, which was really nice because that was a 2-hour drive and I didn't want to do it. So the basics here are that there's a number 1 shingle and a number 2 shingle. That's what this red tag means, is these are number 2s versus number 1s. Now what's the big difference here? Well, price for one thing, because these are $210 per square, which is 4 of these bundles. This is a bundle. So 4 of these bundles makes a square, and a square will cover about 100 square feet. So that's how we, you know, that's the jargon when it comes to this. Similar to roofing, when you're talking about roofing, the squares are the same principle. So these were $160 for number 2s. Now the big difference that I've found in number 2s is that the grain is not as straight and clear as these number 1s are. Okay, so these are going to have a little bit more waviness in the grain. I mean, when they split these all out, they use these fancy saws that actually cut these at angles that are, because they're wedge shaped, and then they grade them as they take them off and determine whether or not they're good enough to be a number 1 or they're going to wind up being a number 2. And so the grain itself, not as perfect. These could have knots in them. They could have, you know, some other things that might make them not just this perfect. So these perfect ones, or these closer to perfect ones, I should say, are going to be the number 1s. And so they also come in a lot of different sizes, but I just thought I'd bring this up. So they're typically about 16 to 18 inches long. They feather out, so they're thick at one end and they taper down to just real thin up here at this end, and that's the way they lay on the wall. The thick end goes down, the thin end goes up, and as we layer them on, you wind up with, you know, it's pretty thick as you go up. You get a nice coverage. Most of this is going to be not seen because we're only doing a 5-inch reveal on our project, so the first 5 inches from down here up is all that's going to show. The rest of this is up underneath the rest of the shingles as it goes up. Okay, but they do come in a lot of different sizes, so you can see this one compared to this one. And so what we like to do is mix them as we go up the wall. Obviously we don't want to have all one size, so as we mix them along, the effect is really nice because you really don't notice so much the width of these. It's mostly because they're all in a nice long straight line going across the wall, and so what your eye picks up is just the row itself. As each row goes up, you're just looking down the wall at the row, and you will notice that they're sitting about that far apart. So we're going to take these bundles, open them up, we're going to sort them all out because we do have you know, a lot of different sizes here, and we want to kind of sort of be random on purpose, if that makes sense, about how we sort these out and lay them out on the wall. See here again, we got another quite a bit wider shingle compared to these, and so we're going to sort these into similar sizes. I mean, they're not there's not a fixed size difference here. There's just a lot of different sizes. So things that are close to this size, we're going to sort into bundles, close to this size, and so forth. And then we're going to mix them. So here's how you get a little bit better price on your project. If you don't want to go with all number 2s, which I don't recommend, even though they're considerably less expensive, mixing them together as much as 50-50 is going to give you a nice mix. You won't notice, you're not going to walk along. I mean, with a trained eye, somebody can walk up and look at these shingles, oh yeah, that's a number 2 or that's a number 1, but when you mix them together on a wall, you're not going to notice. And so that saves you a considerable amount of money. So you're paying $160 for these, $210 for these, mix them together, and you wind up with a nice mix. Now, we didn't wind up getting as many of these as we wanted to because they didn't have enough of them finished. So we're probably around 30% number 2 mixed in with our project, so we got a little bit more of the number 1s. It's going to save us a couple $100 to wind up, you know, shifting over to a few more bundles of these, but they just didn't have them, so that's where that's at. Okay, so let's I think the next thing we'll do is we'll start showing about laying up the wall, or we'll take a look at maybe the 2 walls that we've already got in progress, so you can kind of see what we're looking for.